Bonjour, mes amis, to A Drink with the Past with your host
Martin.
and Jose. Aujourd'hui, we are planning this discussion on the French Revolution. Our beverage of choice today is Chateau Lafite red wine. So, settle in with your bevy and chin chin as we take a drink with the past. Chin chin. Alright, so you good? You done? Okay, meal's over. Alright, so you taking us to France, and okay, so what are we doing in France?
So for France, we are just going to be talking a bit about the French Revolution, basically. So
Where are we starting from?
Basically, we are starting from the beginning, basically the beginnings, which is in the 1780s, right? Mm-hmm. Which is basically where everything comes crashing down, basically. And honestly, we are going to discuss a little about where our current terms come from in regards to politics.
What politics?
So basically, the terms such as left versus the right.
Leftists and the rights.
Left,
so what's the
left versus the right? So basically, those names that we have today to describe the political ideologies that
what are the ideologies
of the left and the rights, right? So basically, it all originated from the French Revolution. So the left being more radical, while the right being more moderate and a bit conservative, right? Not too conservative, but basically they're still on the conservative outpost right there. So left versus right, that's surprise, it actually originated from the French Revolution. Most of the things that we have today does originate from the French Revolution, just because of what a crazy time period it was.
I personally don't remember much, so you have to give me like a refresher course on what exactly was going on in France.
So obviously, everyone knows that France had a monarchy, right? And basically, France had a monarchy ever since the fall of the Roman Empire, and where the Frankish comes in, right? They set up the kingdom of the Franks, and then it slowly evolves. The name of the country slowly evolves into France, right? And it's been ruled by monarchs for centuries, basically the same family, right?
Even today?
Kind of. Well, not today. France does not have a monarchy today. But back then, before the French Revolution, there was a monarchy. In the 1600s, you have Louis XIV, who basically went a bit overboard when it came with discussing about what a monarchy should be. And Louis XIV is the perfect example of an absolute monarch. So basically, he was full on under the idea that he was divinely chosen to rule France. This is where it comes with absolute monarchy. Basically, the monarchs believe that God himself chose that specific person to become the king of a country. And no one can question it.
No one?
Like, no one can question it. That it's what's said is said. The church even agrees with it,
I wonder what church they agrees with that, because I don't know. I don't believe that. I wouldn't believe that even for a second back then, but I guess it's too late now to argue about that.
Well, it's true. Not just France, but other places have that too. England used to have it. Russia had that idea until the freaking 20th century. Jesus Christ. Russia was the last country to believe in the absolute monarch system.
Gotcha.
But for France, it was Louis XIV that went all out with the divine right of kings situation with the absolute monarchy, in which he ended up spending lavishly on things. He moved his palace from Paris to Versailles, which is like a few miles away from Paris, which says a lot because he didn't want to be involved with all the chaos and all the things that were happening in Paris.
Like what? What was exactly going on after he was deemed the absolute monarch in Paris?
Basically, he wanted to get away from all the troubles and.
Oh, right, because because of what he says about absolute monarchy. Now he doesn't want to deal with it.
It's like, no, I'm going to be away from the people. It's like, what? You're going to be in seclude, isolation.
But Versailles
where the kings have...
Is Versailles like countryside?
It's a countryside.
Oh. Okay.
Versailles is more of the countryside.
Okay, well, like I said, I've never been here.
Yeah, it's more of the countryside. And he ends up turning his father's hunting lodge. It used to have been a hunting lodge.
The hunting lodge is now his headquarters? That's crazy.
Basically, his father's hunting lodge, so King Louis XIII's hunting lodge in Versailles ends up becoming what is known as the Palace of Versailles, where people can currently visit to this day. And
I'm just picturing a regular hunting lodge, and I'm assuming that wasn't a relatively large land to begin with. But I could be wrong.
Well, then again, it's a hunting lodge, so the land was used, surprise, for hunting. So anyway, so Louis XIV, right, he ends up becoming this absolute monarch where basically he spends lavishly on this grand palace.
Okay.
He ends up making the Hall of Mirrors.
Hall of Mirrors?
The known Hall of Mirrors, where it's nothing but a room and there's mirrors on the wall.
Oh, is that like what kids do nowadays when they like walk into a maze? They try to figure out how to get away?
No, I think that's the wine talking. Excuse his... Anyways, but yeah, so Louis XIV, he ends up becoming known as the Sun King, where his gates have a sun emblem on them, and he wanted to show visitors to the Palace of Versailles that, hey, you don't mess with me. I am the ultimate monarch here. I run this country like it's the shenanigans, all right?
How much of that sugar did he put in his coffee? It's to assume that people were going to believe that.
Yeah, but it was just insane just how much he did. Louis XV, he basically did the same thing as, his
forefathers.
His forefather, basically, but it wasn't as bad. But he was involved in a war, though. That's the thing.
What war?
He would ultimately bring France into a lot of wars. So, for example, the French, like the French and Indian Wars, or the 6 Years' War that happened with the major powers of Europe, like France, England, Spain.
That's the 6 Year War you're talking about, or is that the French and Indian War?
The 6 Year War.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh.
The war that happened, and basically
what was the whole purpose of the 6 Year War to begin with, if it was between different nations in Europe?
Basically, it was just about, at this point, every major country in Europe had a lot of colonies at this point. Each country wanted to be a world power, and so France...
What were they wanting control of?
Issue with hold on, let me see really quick. They actually wanted to get control of. So hold on, let me see. Specifically, easy. Let's see. First World War. What was the issues?
So he goes and starts a war with, you said Europe, with Germany, Russia, England, and who else?
Spain?
Oh, Spain, okay.
Basically, yeah, so they ended up doing this whole war, right? So the background actually in Europe was it happened first in the War of the Austrian Succession, right, where the Prussian King Frederick II has seized the prosperous province of Silesia from Austria, and then basically it turns into this whole conflict with Austria, and eventually it made a lot of alliances. So France's traditional enemies, which is Britain and Austria, had coalesced just as they had done against Louis XIV. Prussia, the leading anti-Austrian state in Germany, had been supported by France, right? And it ends up becoming this all-out war just for control and, all these other problems, right? Because originally it did start in North America, where the boundaries between the British and the French possessions was largely undefined in the 1750s, and France had long claimed the entire Mississippi River basin area.
All right.
And then you have the Ohio River Valley, right? And everything basically in the middle of North America.
Where the continental divide is.
From Canada down to New Orleans, to the Gulf.
So yeah, the continental divide at this point. All right.
Basically, yeah. So they end up fighting, and France ends up losing this war, right?
Okay.
So they end up losing a lot of money.
What a gargantuan waste of time.
Yes.
Okay,
and
so
a lot of loss. So of course Louis XIV died, and then
he just dies. End of the story for that
Louis
one.
XV ends up dying in 1774, and he ends up being succeeded by Louis XVI, who was his grandson, basically.
Could he have possibly been any worse than his grandfather?
Unfortunately, yes.
Oh,
he was worse. He was worse than his
Spoke too soon.
He was worse than his grandfather, but basically, he had no idea how to rule whatsoever.
What do you mean by doesn't know how to rule? Just allocating things frivolously?
Basically, he was young. He was only 19 years old.
Is that the youngest person to ever be running the country?
Well, not the youngest person to be
In
running the
France.
country. No, of course not. There are other young people, but they ended up being good, better than him. So when Louis XIV ascended the throne in 1774, he was only 19. He had an enormous responsibility as the government was deeply in debt. Resentment of the monarchy was on the rise.
When was that ever not on the rise?
And basically, unfortunately, his grandfather, Louis XV, was been hated.
I would assume anyone who succeeds after that and still assumes absolute monarchy is going to be hated. I don't see how that would change even as someone.
And of course, the public, because the public basically remember him as this mujeriego, this irresponsible man, a womanizer.
Whoa.
Right, he was just doing his own thing rather than managing France. Right, and that was a whole con about Louis XIV moving the palace to Versailles, to the countryside, out of Paris, because at that point they become completely isolated from the people.
Because they're in the countryside. They're not even in Paris. They're not even in the epicenter of France at this point.
Well, exactly. They're not with the public, so they don't know the grievances of the people. In the past monarchs of France, how they've been doing it.
You would assume for someone that has an absolute monarch, they would have, I guess, they would establish some sort of, not headquarters, but just little stations where they visit, so that they could hear the grievances of the people and not just rely on being only in Versailles the entire time, waiting for them to approach the king at that point.
Exactly, and the thing is, Louis XVI ultimately felt the pressure falling on top of him at that point. Because it's a lot of things that his grandfather effed up, his grandfather effed up a lot of things. And so the public's view on the monarchy became an all-time low when Louis XVI ends up taking the throne.
How long did that last?
Most likely almost 10 years. Almost 10 years. So when Louis becomes king, his main focus was on religious freedom and foreign policy. Well, I guess that's the good thing, right? But unfortunately, he lacked firmness and decisiveness.
Oof, yikes.
His desire to be loved by his people is evident in the prefaces of many of his edicts that would often explain the nature and good intention of his actions as benefiting the people, such as reinstating the Parlement. Basically, Parliament. When questioned about his decision, he said, "It may be considered politically unwise, but it seems to me to be the general wish, and I want to be loved."
I want to be loved.
So desperate.
I don't.
So desperate. At that point, he sounds so desperate. I want to be loved.
I want to be loved because apparently my grandfather doesn't love people.
I want to be loved.
Oh, to be loved at this point when you're so far away from the drama.
Mis amis.
You know that means welcome.
Like mis amis. I want to be loved.
How miserable is that?
Miserable.
Miserable.
In spite of the indecisiveness, though, Louis XVI was determined to be a good king, saying that he must always consult public opinion. It is never wrong. Jeez, always.
It is never wrong. All right.
Like, never wrong? Oh, I'm sorry. What you said about my mama?
What'd you say about your mama? What you say about my mama?
Like, execute him.
That's crazy.
Then basically, when the French Revolution...
Does it start with Louis XVI?
Louis XVI was king when the American Revolution starts.
The American or the French?
Oh, American. So the American Revolution happens, right? And the American colonist goes to France to ask for a loan, basically, for their financial and military support.
Okay,
and Louis was hesitant. Louis was hesitant. He was like,
I'm trying to imagine an American going up to the French not the French Parliament, but the palace and saying, "Bonjour, good sir. May we have a loan for I don't know what? Was it just like for like the army, like just like military power from the French?"
From the British.
Oh, okay. Oh, because they were fighting the British. To fight the British. Okay. To fight Paul Revere. No, not Paul Revere. To fight the Redcoats. God, I don't remember. It's clicking now. This one is definitely hitting a little bit. Okay, so they go up and he's hesitant to loan them any kind of money to fight the Redcoats.
Right, and then basically he ends up, after he hears their first success, the colonists' first military success, that's when he decides to give in and say, you know what, I think I have hope for you guys, so here's a loan. Here's the loan, and I'll give you guys my navy and support.
Did they ever repay him after said loan?
Truth be told, in the end of the revolution, we never paid them back.
We don't speak for the general, but apologies. Apologies for paying that back, I guess.
Exactly, but the British were responsible in doing the Treaty of Paris, though. Between
the Treaty of Versailles.
Well, no, the Treaty of Paris.
Is that different? So that's different from the Treaty of Versailles.
Yes, the Treaty of Versailles is different from the Treaty of Paris.
Okay.
So, yes, France gained little from the Treaty of Paris right at the end of the war, except the colonies of Tobago and Senegal. Louis XVI was wholly disappointed in his aims of recovering Canada, India, and other islands in the West Indies from Britain, as they were too well defended, and the Royal Navy made an attempted invasion of mainland Britain impossible. The war cost
It's in the trillions.
6 million livres finance.
Librees? Is that what they call it? The currency over there? Librees?
Libri. Yeah.
Leveries.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, basically. So they gave him this big loan
That we never paid back as an American. So,
but eventually I think we did pay them back though.
Okay, so the American Revolution ends. They don't like the treaty, but they sign it in the end, I guess. So how does this contribute to what leads to the French Revolution?
So obviously, in the end, the French ends up being mad at the king still because again the country is dead broke. But King Louis XIV loves spending money on his lavish parties.
Lavish parties, I can't. So what happens with that?
His lavish parties, and of course, people did not. So back right when he first became king, he had already married Marie Antoinette.
Marie Antoinette.
Yeah, Marie Antoinette, who was the daughter of the Austrian empress.
Daughter of an empress, okay.
Daughter of the Austrian empress, and it wasn't because of love per se. It was because, again, alliances. Marriages between royal people had to be married just to secure an alliance between two nations, right? So Marie Antoinette ends up leaving her beloved Austria to France. And, she didn't know a word of French before.
I would assume so because Austria is not the same as France in any imagination of the word itself.
And to begin with, people didn't like her just because she was Austrian.
Again, that is also because they're not anywhere close to each other. So what is there to like about each other if they don't even know about anything about each other? Besides what the king says there is to hate about them. I don't know. But it seems very unreasonable, but anywho.
But then again, she ended up spending lavishly on a lot of her fashion, a lot of her wigs, a lot of her, basically everything that a rich girl liked back then in the day,
Okay. So, again, how does this play in part for the French Revolution that ends up happening, besides them complaining about them being dead broke?
So, Louis XIV had to find a way to pay the debt, right? Or get money.
And how would they get said money?
So, he did something that didn't happen in 300 years. I think ever since Louis XIII. He basically called in the National Assembly.
A National Assembly? Okay.
He called in the National Assembly, which were nothing but 3 estates.
3 estates? What does that mean?
3 estates. So you have the first estate, which was the clergy, the second estate, which was the aristocrats, and the third estate, which was basically everyone else.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean.
Now you have your memory boggled up now.
Sort of, okay. But okay, so
the
they
3
call
estates. So he calls in the National Assembly. Basically, this was the only thing that France had that was close to a parliament.
So what happens in this? What happens now?
So, of course, he ends up calling for a vote of the solution, right? Hey guys, I need a solution. You need to give me guys solutions for this. And of course it's we can tax the rich.
We can tax you even more if you want.
We can tax the first and second clergy, the first and second estates.
Okay, first of all, what does the church have to? Okay, maybe never mind. I forgot that.
They're like,
I forgot the church has a heavy.
All those in favor
taxing the king only.
Taxing the first and second estates. Third estate, raise a hand. all opposed, and then the first and second estate, the motion has not passed.
Oh, so the edict passed?
The motion has not passed.
Oh, the motion has not passed. Okay.
So basically, the bad thing about the Estates General, though, the bad thing about it was that each estate only got one vote. It wasn't based off of how many percentage of people were in a state. No matter what percentage in a state was, each
so there's only 3 votes?
Or basically 3 votes.
So even if everyone else votes tax towards just 1, and then if the states 1 and 2 say no, then that just means it's not going to pass. It's crazy.
So the first and second estate ended up voting to tax the third estate more.
The ones that already don't have any money, you're going to tax even more. That's crazy.
Which was like insane, and at that point, that was basically where like the top people of the third estate was like, okay, you know what, screw this crap, like screw this,
okay,
like this ain't like it didn't even matter what happened, we still get outvoted regardless, and that was actually really unfair to like everyone else.
Rightfully so.
And basically, the third estate ended up wanting to hold their own meeting. So this created the National Assembly of the third estate, right?
Another assembly within the assembly. That's crazy.
So they ended up making the National Assembly, and basically, that's where they wanted to discuss about doing things more peacefully, right? Like, okay, we still got to make sure that the king hears our voices, right? But unfortunately, that was so not the case.
Why?
Because they were locked out of their meeting room.
What do you mean locked out of their own meeting room? Don't they just meet somewhere else?
So they were locked out of they were locked out of their own meeting room. And
so go to a McDonald's. Go to McDonald's and host the assembly there.
So it ended up going to.
This is the same McDonald's.
They ended up going to this tennis court. All right. By the time they say
that's a little better, I guess. That's not a fast food chain.
So basically, everything that happened in like the 1780s already, like 1783, let's say. They ended up taking over this tennis court. And they ended up making a vow to each other with some people from the first and second estate present.
Because
who agreed with members of the third estate.
Because they dead ass are just going like this. They're like, yeah, you totally have my vote. Yeah, my fingers are definitely not crossed back.
Actually, no. There was a lot of people in the second and first estates that agreed with the third estate. Because then again, there were people that used to have been part of the third estate that was able to rise to power.
But the thing is, like, even if 1 or 2 people from each estate agree to that doesn't mean that everyone else within the second and first estate agree to what the other 2 went there for.
So basically, they're in this tennis court, and they end up making a vow to each other that they will not disperse until constitutional reform would be achieved.
Okay, so they go back to the king with this proposal, and then what? The king laughs in their face and says no.
Basically.
Oh, okay. Glad I figured that out. Okay, so the king says no to the proposal. So then what?
So what ends up happening is the people decide to finally take action.
Take matters in their own hands.
So they end up. So a group of Parisians, because everything happens in Paris, Eventually,
Okay, Parisians.
everything is happening in Paris at this point. Okay, yes, it's gonna be going around all of France, but everything starts off in Paris.
Okay, so
on July 14th of 1789, right, a Parisian mob attacked the fortress prison, the Bastille.
storming the Bastille. I remember this part.
The storming of the Bastille, the Parisian mob attacked this fortress prison, which they viewed as a symbol of royal tyranny, and they wanted to seize the gunpowder and the weapons inside there.
Yeah, because
So that way
apparently
they could start a revolution. They can start a full-on revolution.
Okay, I mean, I had a thought, but then I realized like they kind of don't need control of the entire gunpowder and ammo of one country. They just need a little bit to start. So, because I was like, why do you only want to storm one area when clearly there's other bases that hold gunpowder? But I mean, I guess they just only need a little bit to start it off.
But the thing is, that whole thing happened because Louis XIV dismissed his financial minister Jacques Necker.
Why? Because he was the one that went to that meeting.
Because he probably had good ideas.
Oh, I thought it was because he went to that meeting at the tennis court.
He probably had good ideas that didn't support Louis' favor. Well, maybe you can stop spending so much.
I thought it was more so he was at the tennis courts and heard all of this. I was like, I agree with everything the Third Estate says. Let's try to pass it. And then he's like, you know what?
No, he was just a smart he was just a smart economist, and he was like, you know what? I think he should stop spending more on this. Do you really need a Porsche?
Do I really need a Porsche for my Porsche?
Do you really need a Porsche?
I mean, I never had a Porsche, so I got. You never know.
You're
fired.
Thank you, Dickie. You're fired. You relieve the duty.
You relieved of your responsibilities for me, the king.
Honestly, Jacques Necker, he basically was like the only one that would have had the solution for
the only one. I highly doubt it, but I guess
one of the only ones within Louis' circle, the government, like the government circle, to have an idea of how to get France out of the financial pit that they're in.
Okay, so they seize the powder from the Bastille. So now what?
They don't seize the powder. They don't just seize the powder and the weapons. They kill the governor.
All right, because apparently killing the governor is not going to piss someone off. All right, so now they seize, control, and kill
Bernard René Jourdan de Launay.
All right, so then
they end up killing him, cutting his head off, and sticking his head on a pike, and paraded him around.
Right. So we're back to The Walking Dead. So just so you know, in The Walking Dead, there's certain points in this series where they put people's heads on pikes or sticks at this point to use that as defense. But continue.
Well.
So where do they go after this? Now we're going to Versailles.
So after this, basically, Louis XIV.
The 14th or the 16th?
16th, my bad. Louis XVI was coming back from a hunting trip. It was that day where he was in a hunting trip.
In a hunting trip in his own...
right.
In his own campground. That's crazy.
Like, he went hunting, and his only note that he wrote on his journal, for that day, July 14, 1789, nothing. That's what he wrote. Nothing. Because he didn't catch it.
Oh.
Because he didn't catch anything.
Yeah, because he went to his backyard. Obviously, there's nothing there. You already...
That's the only...
Stupid.
That's the only thing he wrote. Nothing. And
the word nothing.
And basically, when he was asleep, and he went to bed, right? He was sleeping, and one of his advisors or someone that works in the palace, right? He goes into Louis' room.
Louis!
he goes into King Louis'
Nightmare.
and then he wakes up, right? He wakes up and
The governor is dead.
and basically, yeah. So talking about the storming of the Bastille, right, and explaining about
They stole me gunpowder. They killed the governor.
and then basically
Get your cup of tea.
cup of tea.
Time to get your cup of tea.
Or wine, more like wine.
Get your cup of tea and time to talk to the people.
Oh my gosh, dude. anyways, so he hears about it, right? And the thing he asks him was, is it a rebellion? That's what Louis asked the butler, like, oh, is it a rebellion? And he's like, and the butler tells him, no, sire, it's a revolution. Noncia.
Right.
Noncia.
No
revolución.
No monsieur, c'est une révolution.
Which was like, oh crap, this is legitimate. This is legitimate right here.
Because it's dead ass your fault. Okay.
You're like, Grandpa, this is your fault, Grandpa.
I'm tired of this, Grandpa. Well, that's too damn bad. So now that happens. So what exactly do they do moving forward? Now that they know it's a full-on revolution.
So basically, Louis is trying his best to ramble about, right? Trying to grab together some things, like trying to get his loyalist forces to try to suppress the Parisians with their rioting and everything, right? And, the people who are responsible for the tennis court oath, or like the ones who were like doing the National Assembly in the Third Estate. Mm-hmm. So in late August of that year, of 1789, the Assembly adopted what will be known as the Declaration of Rights of Man and of the Citizen, right? It's a statement of democratic principles grounded in the philosophical and political ideas of Enlightenment thinkers, mainly like Jean-Jacques Rousseau.
Jean-Jacques Rousseau. So what? Is this basically saying you better stand down or I'm going to kill you? That kind of situation?
Right. It's like, but Rousseau is the one where we get the three branches.
The three branches of government?
That's where we get the three branches of government from.
Do they have...
From the political thinker, Rousseau.
But did they eventually have that after the revolution? Their own form of the three branches?
Yes, but...
Within their parliament?
Basically, yeah.
So, they make this declaration. So what is this declaration about?
That all people are equal. That everyone is equal. That everyone has God-given rights. You can own property.
Okay, how does that help with my brokenness, though? What is that supposed to mean? I'm broke. I still can't afford that house that you live in, King. So what does that? What does this mean? Declaration of being equal with my neighbor.
Basically, everyone pays their own fair taxes. Honestly, this was the idea of. I feel like this was the idea of first step communism.
Well, first of all, like I said, how is that supposed to help the brokenness if everyone's...
Tax the rich.
But they're not getting taxed. I'm assuming that's their own way of covering their... Never mind.
Well, at this point, kill the rich. They're going to try to kill the rich or force them to do a lot of things.
Because at this point, they were already taxed for I don't know how long before this declaration came out, so I don't know how... Now, now you can tax us. Okay, then you owe us 2 months of back rent on those taxes then. Because I'm assuming they're going to want to pay that too. Anything else that happened after the declaration?
So basically, it's going to lead into a conflict between the right and the left.
Oh, this is where you're saying this is where it starts then.
Basically,
the left and right.
Basically, in the end, this is where it's going to start with the left and the right.
Okay.
So the left being like the left being the most radical where they want to get rid of the king once and for all. Mm-hmm. No more monarchy. Let's just do a democratic government.
So they just wanted. So this declaration was kind of a way to split up the third estate into the lefts and the rights.
I feel like that's what the Declaration of the Rights of Man did, to be honest, because they didn't really. I feel
they
like
subconsciously made a division within the states that already
because there's some people that didn't see eye to eye. Of course, you're gonna have those type of people. You're not gonna see eye to eye in a lot of things. Uh-huh. You're going to interpret things your own way, either way. So now you have the Jacobins, who are the more radical, on the left.
Throw the king out, kind of people. And then the rights are the what? They're like, yeah, it's okay, keep the king there.
So the Girondins, the Girondins were the ones who were the more moderate people.
What, they're the ones that prefer to have the king where he's at?
A constitutional monarchy. They wanted to make a constitutional monarchy.
Which means what?
Like Britain.
Like what?
What do you mean, like what? You have the king, right? But he's not the main person of power. He doesn't make the decisions. He's basically just a ceremonial figurehead. He's a symbol of the country. While the political stuff, like the laws and everything, goes to the parliament.
Okay.
So basically, that's what the Girondins wanted. They wanted to basically make France into how the government of Great Britain was like.
All right.
But the Jacobins, though, were like, hell no. We want to get this king out. We don't want nothing to do with monarchs anymore. We're tired of it. Get this guy out.
Okay. So now what? Now what are they left with for this revolution to...
So just to sum up before we get into because it is going to be a second part to this. The main idea is the Girondins wanted to save Louis XVI, right, by either exiling him or imprisoning him. Whereas
exiling him from where? Because apparently being in the countryside wasn't enough of an exile itself.
Whereas the Jacobins, though, wanted his execution to make sure the country becomes a republic.
A republican. All right.
And then the Girondins were popular in the provinces and favored a federalist system, while the Jacobins were centered in Paris that were supported by the urban poor and local societies. Jeez Louise, that sounds like the Jacobins were the first communists.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't know historical timelines like that too much to know if that is the case of the first communists. But
the economic views was the Girondins favored the laissez-faire economics.
Laissez-faire? That seems oldish. Never mind.
Oh please, we studied this. That's what we talked about in economics in high school.
But isn't that the same thing of what communism is already? Just
no,
everyone gets paid.
No, we are laissez-faire. No, laissez-faire is the capitalist system.
The name is familiar. That's why I'm like, I don't know what that means.
The Jacobins implemented price controls and strict regulations.
Okay. I like the idea so far of no price gouging at that point.
So I think we'll leave it to there right now. So join us. So next time we'll talk about the fate of King Louis XVI, basically the end of the monarchy and the reign of terror.
A reign of terror.
Under Maximilian Robespierre.
All right. With that being said, thank you guys for sticking with us throughout the episode. Be sure to comment and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to leave a discussion about what you thought caught your attention to this episode, feel free to drop it below. As always, thank you guys as we take a drink with the past. Chin chin.
Chin chin.